Once, every skyscraper began its day with the hush of brass gates, the crisp salute of white gloves, and the voice of a vertical pilot. The elevator operator was more than a button pusher. They were a safety expert, a social connector, and the building's heartbeat, trusted with secrets and lives alike. But when automation arrived, their world vanished almost overnight, replaced by sterile boxes and a human-shaped hole in city life. What did we lose when the call, "Step back, please," became just silence, and what was it really like to ride the first social network? As we ascend through time, the story of invisible labor and the great push-button panic still echoes in the halls, and the answers lie just beyond the next floor. A marble lobby once shimmered with more than just the glow of Art Deco lamps. The first thing to greet you was the sound, a crisp click as polished shoes crossed terrazzo, the metallic slide of a brass gate, and always the gentle command, "Step back, please." At the center of this ritual stood the elevator operator, uniform pressed, cap at a perfect angle, white gloves spotless. To ride the elevator was not simply to travel between floors, but to enter a kind of vertical theater with the operator as both conductor and host. Their presence was as much a part of the building's identity as the carved stone above the door. Operators memorized every name, remembered birthdays, and managed the delicate choreography of strangers pressed together in a confined space. In the grand lobbies of the 1920s and 1930s, the elevator car became a moving salon where gossip, business, and flirtation mingled in the air. The operator's uniform, a navy jacket with brass buttons, crisp gloves, and a cap, spoke of trust and status, signaling both authority and discretion. For many, especially immigrants who found steady work behind the controls, this role offered a rare foothold in the city's social hierarchy. The operator's hands, always gloved, moved with practiced confidence over the levers and dials. Each stop required judgment, a subtle blend of touch and timing to align the car perfectly with the marble landing. Passengers relied on that skill, trusting the operator to deliver them safely every day. The elevator lobby was more than a passage. It was a stage, and the operator, the vertical concierge, was its star, visible, dignified, and indispensable to the rhythm of city life. A gloved hand curled around a polished brass wheel, feeling the subtle vibration of the motor deep in the palm. In the early decades of the skyscraper age, this was the heart of the elevator, the rheostat controller, a device as sensitive as a violin's bow. Operators learned to coax the cab upward, easing the wheel forward for ascent, then drawing back to slow the car, reading resistance and pitch changes in this machinery like a second language. Each stop was a test of judgment. Too much momentum, and the floor would rush past; too little, and the car would stall mid-flight. So the operator would jog the wheel with short, rhythmic nudges until the cab's edge hovered perfectly level with the marble landing. This wasn't guesswork. It was precision, practiced over hundreds of rides a day, eyes flicking from shaft markers to the glowing dial of the position indicator, a 1929 invention that mapped the car's journey in a column of lights. The introduction of Otis's micro-drive self-leveling system in 1915 offered a bit of forgiveness, using springs to cushion the stop. But the final word always belonged to human hands. U.S. Patent 1775348, filed in the late 1920s, formalized the operator's dashboard, a panel of lamps, switches, and the all-important deadman switch, which required constant pressure to keep the cab alive. Let go, even for a moment, and the motor would cut out, arresting the car mid-shaft. Every passenger's safety depended on the operator's touch, their ability to read the subtle cues of speed and inertia, to anticipate the building's quirks, and to bring the cab to rest with a gentle, almost theatrical flourish. In this world, mastery was visible in the smallest detail. The way the car settled, silent and steady, as the operator called out, "Step back, please." A silent pact linked every passenger to the operator's steady hand, a trust sealed by a device both simple and profound: the dead man's switch. Mounted at the heart of the operator's console, this spring-loaded lever demanded constant pressure. The moment a hand slipped or strength faded, the circuit snapped open, and the elevator's motor surrendered, halting the cab mid-shaft. This was no abstract safeguard. It was a living tether, a promise that as long as the operator remained alert, so would the machine. Otis engineers, in their 1910 workshops, shaped the first of these switches from cast iron and polished brass, embedding a philosophy of vigilance into the very hardware of the city. Operators learned to rest their palm on the paddle, fingers curled just so, always ready to ease the wheel or grip the brake. The switch became an extension of the body, so natural that seasoned hands could sense a slip before it happened. In the early years, newspapers carried stories of lives saved by this mechanism. One winter morning in 1924, an operator at the Woolworth building fainted from exhaustion. The cab, climbing between the 27th and 28th floors, shuddered and stopped. Passengers, startled but unharmed, later learned that it was the dead man's switch, not luck, that had spared them a plunge into darkness. Otis's own historian describes the switch as a handshake between human and machine, a physical signature of trust. The public, reassured by this invisible guardian, stepped into the car with confidence, knowing that safety was not just a matter of gears and cables, but of human presence. The dead man's switch was more than a technical fix. It was a symbol, a daily reminder that, in the vertical city, the line between peril and security lay in the vigilance of the operator's touch. On the morning of September 24th, 1945, New York City skyscrapers stood silent. The hum of elevators vanished, replaced by the echo of hurried footsteps on marble stairwells. More than 15,000 elevator operators, doormen, and porters walked off the job, their uniforms left hanging in empty locker rooms. In lobbies that once buzzed with greetings and the soft clatter of brass gates, only the distant shuffle of frustrated tenants remained. For 5 days, the city's vertical heartbeat stalled. Office towers, from the Empire State Building to Midtown banks, became vertical prisons. Mail piled up in ground-floor vestibules. Stockbrokers tipped delivery boys $75 to haul urgent paperwork up 31 flights. The city's more than 1 million white-collar workers, many refusing to cross picket lines or climb endless stairs, stayed home. Trains ran half-empty. Businesses counted losses in the millions. The International Union of Elevator Constructors, backed by Local 32B, demanded not just fair wages, but respect for the invisible labor that kept the city's vertical arteries flowing. Their leverage was absolute. Without the operator's hand on the wheel, the skyscraper was little more than a hollow shell. Newspapers described a metropolis at a standstill. Even the governor, Thomas Dewey, was forced to intervene, ordering binding arbitration after 5 days of paralysis. On September 29, 1945, the operators returned to their posts, their dead man's switches restored, their pay cuts blocked. The city's elevators creaked back to life, each ride a quiet testament to the poor of the hands behind the brass gate. A labor historian later called it the week the city stopped. For a brief moment, the vertical pilots were impossible to ignore, no longer just uniformed silhouettes, but the keepers of the city's pulse. In every silent lobby and idle shaft, New York caught a glimpse of the human-shaped hole automation would one day leave behind. 60 seconds. That was the average time it took to ride from the marble lobby to the 20th floor. In that minute, the elevator car became a world unto itself, a capsule of city life, curated by the operator's steady hand and practiced greeting. Sociologists later called it the first vertical social network. But for the people who rode those cars each day, it was simply the most human part of the building. Mrs. Levine, who lived on 17, always brought her terrier wrapped in a tartan scarf. The operator, Mr. Russo, would tip his cap, announce her floor, and ask after her son's piano lessons. On the ride up, he might introduce Mr. Goldberg from 15, who managed the bakery on the corner, to Mrs. Klein from 12, whose daughter needed a job. In 60 feet of travel, a neighbor's face became a friend's name. Children learned the etiquette of city living here. Hats off, no running, always a step back, please, before the doors closed. The operator enforced a gentle choreography, separating squabbling siblings, settling nerves after a thunderstorm, or offering a reassuring wink to a nervous new tenant. For newcomers, the operator was the first guide to the building's unspoken rules, which floor held the dentist, who was expecting a baby when the milkman would arrive. Urban sociologist Dr. Henry Morales once described the operator as the city's original algorithm, processing faces, names, and stories, weaving together a vertical tapestry of trust. The car itself was a confessional, a matchmaking bureau, a newsstand, and sometimes a stage for small acts of kindness. Passengers shared the day's gossip, mourned a lost pet, or celebrated a promotion, all in the span of a brief ride. When the doors slid open and the operator called out your floor, you stepped into your day feeling seen. That 60-second journey was more than just a lift. It was the pulse of the building, a reminder that even in the densest city, there was still room for connection. By the early 1950s, a new sound crept into the marble lobbies, a soft chime, the press of a plastic button, the mechanical voice of a machine inviting passengers to ride alone. Push-button elevators, once a novelty, now arrived with the promise of progress. Manufacturers like Otis flooded trade magazines with bright illustrations, smiling families gliding upward with no uniformed pilot in sight. Corporate ads declared the future was here. No more waiting, no more wages, just the silent efficiency of automation. Building owners took notice. A cost study in 1953 boasted that eliminating operators could cut labor expenses by nearly 30% per car. For landlords, it was a simple arithmetic: fewer salaries, more profit, and a lobby that ran itself. But the public was not so easily convinced. In the shadow of the 1945 strike, memories lingered of silent shafts and powerless tenants. The thought of stepping into an empty elevator, no steady hand on the wheel, no watchful eyes, sparked unease. Newspapers coined it the great push-button panic. Letters to editors and city councils poured in, many from elderly riders or nervous parents, questioning whether a box of steel and wires could be trusted with their lives. Some refused to ride alone, waiting instead for a neighbor or the next operator-manned car. Etiquette guides scrambled to adapt. The old rules, hats off, no crowding, and always heed the operator's gentle request to step back, please, gave way to a new uncertainty. Without a human host, who enforced civility, who settled disputes or calmed a frightened child? Corporate marketing doubled down. Pamphlets reassured that the elevators were safer than ever and asked riders to just press and relax. But something intangible had slipped away. The elevator lobby, once a salon of greetings and gentle reminders, grew quieter, more anonymous. The ritual of the ride, the glance, the nod, the soft command faded into the hum of relays and the click of closing doors. In the rush to automate, buildings gained efficiency but lost a piece of their soul. The vertical city, once stitched together by the invisible labor of its pilots, began to show the first outlines of a human-shaped whole. In 1968, a single line of policy text swept away what generations of elevator operators had built. The revised ASME safety code no longer required a human at the controls, provided certain automatic safeguards were in place. Overnight, the last legal anchor for the profession vanished. Union ledgers, once thick with names, began to thin at an astonishing pace. Across the country, the workforce shrank from 25,000 active operators in the early 1960s to just 2,500 by the end of the decade. A collapse recorded in the quiet tick of erased entries and the closing of locker rooms. For many, the badge, the cap, the white gloves, all symbols of mastery and belonging, became relics left in desk drawers. The marble lobbies, stripped of their vertical pilots, grew quieter. The rhythm of greetings, the shared confidences, the gentle phrase, "Step back, please," all faded into the mechanical hush of automated doors. What remained was a void, not just in the union roles, but in the very fabric of city life. A human-shaped hole where the elevator operator once stood. A century-old elevator groans to life in Seattle's Smith Tower, its polished brass gate sliding open with a practiced hand. Here, the job of vertical pilot has not faded into memory. Each ride begins with a greeting, sometimes a story, sometimes a knowing wink, and always the steady grip on the handwheel, guiding visitors through a ritual unchanged since 1912. The operator's palm never leaves the dead man's switch. Fingers curled around the same paddle that once tethered passengers to safety high above city streets. The hum of the original Otis motor, the faint vibration underfoot, and the gentle rise of the car create a living museum of touch and trust. Smith Tower is not alone. In New York's Woolworth Building, a single operator still recites the etiquette of a vanished era, while in Chicago's Board of Trade and London's St. Pancras Hotel, heritage cars glide between floors under human command. These sites, listed in preservation registries, stand as rare outposts where the craft endures. Each ride is more than a novelty. It is a passage through time, a living link to the days when elevator etiquette was as important as engineering. Here, the ritual survives, a cap tipped, a floor called out, and always the quiet reminder, "Step back, please." In the glass towers of 2026, a curious reversal is underway. The human presence, once erased by automation, is now the ultimate amenity. On social media, the hashtag Vertical Concierge has drawn more than 1.2 million impressions, as visitors and residents share snapshots of uniformed operators greeting them by name, gloved hands guiding them through restored brass gates. In luxury real estate, developers are quietly competing to bring back the elevator operator, not as a relic, but as a selling point. A property manager in Manhattan's Upper West Side describes it simply: People will pay more for a building with a soul. They want to be recognized, not just transported. Market data backs up the nostalgia. Heritage elevator experiences, once seen as a novelty, now drive a 7% annual growth rate in select urban markets. At the Smith Tower, ticket sales for operator-guided rides have soared, with premium pricing for private tours and event bookings. The Woolworth Building's elevator experience boasts guest satisfaction scores above 4.8 out of 5. For a new generation, the operator's steady presence, once taken for granted, has become a rare luxury, a sign that true comfort lies not in seamless automation, but in the warmth of a 60-second human connection. Today, the hush of the brass gate is gone, replaced by silent automation and a lingering human-shaped hole in the lobby's heart. As cities race upward, we trade the gentle step back, pleas for sterile efficiency. In 2026, nostalgia loops back. True luxury is not the gleam of chrome, but the warmth of a human welcome. Proof that invisible labor was always the soul of the vertical city. Share your memories below.